What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Wolverine Live Recruiting Show. I am your host, EJ Holland, and we are back. If you missed it last week, just a quick housekeeping item. We have moved away from YouTube Premium, so there is no more members only. We're back with the free show every Tuesday night, so feel free to get your questions in. I will be answering all of them today. Also, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for free, get notifications every time we drop new videos, and subscribing and liking this video definitely helps. It helps me fix the blinds. So, your money could definitely help me fix the blinds for sure. I don't know what happened back there. I think there's really no point in fixing the blinds because the cat climbs on the blinds. So, But anyway, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll try to fix the blinds. And also subscribe to the Wolverine.com. If you want more Michigan recruiting intel, you can head over to the Wolverine.com today. And we actually have a special promo code just for our YouTube viewers. That's $1 for 2 months. Use the promo code UM1. Again, that's $1 for 2 months using the promo code UM1. And again, that gets you insider information on everything Michigan recruiting as well as the team. We are in full swing here for the season. So make sure to head over to the Wolverine.com. Let's go ahead and answer y'all's questions. And we are answering them in the order in which they came. But if you do want to skip the line, you can hit that little dollar symbol, and that gets you a super chat, and you get to skip the line. All right. Ben Rickett says, which flip target does Michigan have the best odds of flipping? That's a good question. I think, one target that probably isn't talked a lot about that Michigan has a really good shot of flipping, especially with Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng kind of playing around and taking his time with the process and making other visits. Cameron White, who is committed to UCF, he's a 3-star linebacker. I wrote about him last week over at the Wolverine, mentioned that he is making a visit for the game against Oregon on November 2nd. I think he's a pretty realistic flip target for the Wolverines. I mean, outside of Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, he's really the only linebacker they're pushing super hard for. I mean, they've stayed in contact with guys like Kamar Archie, who's committed to Rutgers, but there hasn't been too much movement there. They've stayed in contact with Gavin Nix, who's committed to Miami. Again, not too much movement there, especially with Miami doing well on the field. So Cameron White could end up being the other linebacker in this class. And, I don't think taking a commitment from Cameron White, I don't think would affect Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. I think you push for him until signing day anyway. But with, the constant movement with Owusu-Boateng, and Colorado's now in the picture. He still has a visit set for Notre Dame. He still has a visit set for Texas. There are just so many variables with him. And plus he's taking it all the way to signing day. So you definitely don't want the all your eggs in one basket approach. So I feel like Cameron White could definitely be that really realistic flip target. I mean, there are definitely others. I mean, along the defensive line, you have, several new targets. You have Quante Gillians, who's committed to Syracuse. He's coming in for the Michigan State game. They just offered Benny Patterson, who's committed to Cincinnati. He's also coming in for the Michigan State game. So, yeah, there are definitely some under the radar guys there. Jamar Browder, who's committed to NC State, bigger bodied wide receiver, is another strong possibility too. Kentucky recently got involved, so that's something to watch. But yeah, those are definitely some names to know. Obviously, Michigan's doing whatever it takes to get a high-end corner, whether that's Brandon Finney, who's committed to Oregon, or Grayson Littleton, who's committed to Clemson, or Donovan Starr, who's committed to Auburn. I mean, there are various options there. But I think the most realistic are kind of those guys that are committed to not as high end of programs right now. Ben Rickett says, since the NCAA has now removed NLI, can recruits sign financial aid or collective papers at any time? I think from my understanding, and the rule is still very confusing for those of you that don't know, the NCAA has done away with national letters of intent, which were binding agreements. Now, financial aid agreements have always existed. Those were non-binding. So a recruit could sign a financial aid agreement with multiple schools. It was not binding. Now it appears that financial aid agreements will replace NLI, but they will become binding. And that is because they will be in conjunction with papers that have to do with revenue sharing. So you're basically signing a contract that you're getting a certain amount of money from revenue sharing from this school. So now these financial aid agreements are becoming binding. From my understanding, and again, it's still kind of confusing on how this will work. But from my understanding, it's now binding with that contract aspect from the revenue sharing. And the open window is still during those two signing days, so December and February. Also, from my understanding, it looks like they want to do away with one of those signing days. So you may only have one window for that financial aid agreement / revenue sharing contract to be signed. We do have a super chat, and this comes from Austin Carr, $4.99. So big shout out to Austin, who gets to flip the line and skip the line. I'm sorry. And he says any commits in the 25 class you see having a good rankings bump. So any commits in the 25 class that I think will have a good rankings bump. You've already seen Jasper Parker move up the rankings in a lot of services, but I think he can continue to climb, man. He's really having a strong senior season. It's unfortunate I haven't been able to go out to see him yet. I do believe that I'm going to make that happen before the season ends, but Jasper Parker's been on fire. And you see, he hasn't gotten a bump from all the services, man. He's still a 3-star on 24/7. He's still a 3-star on ESPN. Both On3 and Rivals have him inside the top 200, which is probably where he belongs. I mean, if you look at some of his senior game film, it's really impressive. I mean, he's a taller, bigger back that runs really well between the tackles, has enough speed to break away, from after he gets through that second level. So, yeah, I mean, he's just kind of been on fire lately. If you look at his stats every week, he's putting up monster numbers. But, aside from stats, you're seeing him just kind of take steps in his game. I mean, he looks more explosive than he did as a junior. He looks more powerful than he did as a junior. He looks to have better vision than he did as a junior. So Jasper Parker, I think, is a guy that'll continue to climb the rankings and will probably be inside that top 300 on the industry ranking and maybe even top 200 on the industry ranking before it's all said and done. I'm trying to think of any other guys that could see rankings movements. I think, of the guys that are having really strong seasons, Jasper Parker is the one commit where I would make the argument. I really like Chase Taylor more than the services, Michigan's linebacker commit out of Georgia. He doesn't get a ton of publicity. He's really quiet, but I think he's a guy that could rise up the rankings. I think he's had a pretty good senior season as well. It just needs some more eyes and attention on him. But, that's one for offense and one for defense. But yeah, Chase Taylor, who I think really has a lot of upside as an edge. At first, when Michigan first took Taylor this summer, I wasn't super high on him. I was like, I just see this guy as another guy. But the more I watched him, the more I was like, okay, there's something here as a pass rusher. Like, I really feel like he could end up being kind of Jalen Harrell-esque. So I would definitely keep an eye on Chase Taylor. Let's go down to Noah. And he says, so some predictions for Babalola have come in. How confident are you? I think if Babalola sticks with his timeline, then the pick will be Michigan. Now, Babalola is supposed to make his decision sometime in the next, what is it? I think it's like 13 days, I believe. Let me pull up the calendar so I'm not, mistaken on that. Actually, in the next 10 days, he is supposed to be making a decision. So I believe the set deadline, he had put out was October 25th, which is his last regular season game. So even sooner than I thought. Now, let's say we're sitting here and it's Halloween weekend, right? And he hasn't made a decision. Then, we're back to when will Babalola decide? Is he fully not ready? But right now, I think Michigan has built up enough momentum. I think they've done enough to win out. I think they've kind of avoided the Auburn NIL push. And obviously, Michigan offers the best of both worlds for him. NIL wasn't the biggest factor in his recruitment early on, and it looks like it still isn't, which is obviously great news for the Wolverines. I think Michigan can do enough with NIL, maybe not what Auburn can do, but they kind of offset that by having way better academics and having a strong track record of development. Michigan head coach Sherrone Moore and offensive line coach Grant Newsome were both out seeing Babalola on Thursday of last week. So I think they made another strong impression there. Remember, Babalola hasn't made any visits this fall, so it was great for Moore and Newsome to go out there and actually get some FaceTime with him. So yeah, I think right now Michigan is definitely the team to beat. They've overtaken Stanford on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. If he doesn't delay, everything looks like it's going to end up going Michigan's direction, which is obviously massive considering that Babalola is a 5-star, one of the best offensive tackles in the country. Tackle is such a huge need. And, it's rare for freshmen to start right away, but I think if a freshman can do it, it's probably Babalola. David Anaj says, why haven't you put in a pick for Babalola? Honestly, and I've been honest with you guys and I've been honest with the subscribers, like I am not going to sit here like most recruiting reporters do and just bullshit you guys and tell you guys that I know that something's happening. I'm very transparent with you guys. And I'm not just going to follow Wilfong to follow Wilfong. Now, I haven't had the best feel for this recruitment. I don't like these types of recruitments where you have constant delays. I don't know Babalola well. I have not been out to see him. So I don't have the best feel for it. And I don't want to just piggyback off of Wilfong. Like Wilfong put in a pick, right? And then you saw all these other people put in picks. Like, what are you putting in picks for? You don't have any intel. Like that's Wilfong's intel, right? You're just trying to confirm things and, it's nonsense, right? Like there were a couple of recruitments where me and Wilfong teamed up in the summer and we put in picks at the same time, like we did for Andrew Marsh, we did for Andrew Olesh, but those were recruitments where we were both getting intel. I've been really leaning heavily on Steve on this recruitment, and I have no shame. I've been doing this for 13 years. I have no shame to say that I just don't have the best feel for this one. I continue to hear positive things from around Michigan's program, but at the same time, you've had so many delays here, and like I said, I don't know the kid that well. And you never know when Auburn's involved as well. Like I'm still a little wary of that. So, I kind of stayed away from putting in a prediction for Marquise Davis when everybody else put in a prediction. He ended up going to Kentucky. I stayed away from putting in a prediction for Nate Marshall. I refused to do it. Even when everybody else put in picks for Nate Marshall, I did not do it because I always felt like he could flip to Auburn, which he did. And with Babalola, I'm not saying that he won't end up at Michigan just because Davis and Marshall didn't. If I had to put in a pick today, if you made me put one in, it would be Michigan. I'm just saying that for these recruitments that have some weird twists and turns, that have delays and moving parts, I would just rather avoid not putting in a pick in general. So, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm probably not going to put in a pick unless I hear something really concrete. But like I said earlier, I think Michigan gets him as long as he makes his decision within these 10 days. Ava Dedavinaj says, are we going to get Lamar Brown or Jackson Cantwell on campus? For those of you that don't know, these names might not be too familiar for you guys, but they are two of the best offensive linemen in the 2026 recruiting class. Lamar Brown being out of Louisiana, and Jackson Cantwell being out of Missouri. So, you look at Lamar Brown, he's the number one interior offensive lineman in the country, 99% prediction to LSU. Maybe they get them to campus. I mean, Michigan obviously has gotten some wins here recently in Louisiana. You have the Ron Bellamy tie, but even if they do, that's a real uphill battle. Plus, he's a ULab kid, and that's like a feeder school to LSU. And then on the flip side of the coin, Cantwell was supposed to make a visit to Michigan several months back, and then it didn't end up happening. So I feel like if he really wanted to visit Michigan, he would have by now. Maybe Sherrone Moore and Grant Newsome can make some things shake, but that one seems like an uphill battle as well. Jeff says, what does getting rid of the NLI really mean? Nothing really. I think the biggest reason they did it is because they're now combining a document with the revenue sharing, which makes it binding. So it really doesn't change anything for, recruiting followers or reporters like myself or recruiting fans like you guys. Like, I guess the financial aid agreement in itself is a non-binding document, but now the new revenue sharing contract makes it a binding document. So it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Like, the recruits are still signing a binding document on signing day. It's just no longer called an NLI. I think it's still a little confusing on how exactly that's going to work, and if there are certain numbers built in terms of the revenue sharing. But it looks like they are going to sign on signing day, and the financial aid agreement will become a binding document due to the revenue sharing. Tyson Smith says, are we getting any of the new defensive linemen? I'm assuming the new D-line targets. I think Michigan would like to get a couple of the new D-line targets. I think 2 would probably be the number they're looking at. Obviously, Lou Esposito has been really busy offering guys, evaluating guys. So he was on the road. Esposito was. He was on the road on Thursday, seeing Syracuse commit Quante Gillians, and I think he's a kid I mentioned earlier that could be a flip possibility. He is a Rochester kid, so he's nearby Syracuse, but he's really open to Michigan. He loves the development. He knows that Michigan's a superior program, so he'll be on campus on October 26th. And then Esposito went from there to Georgia, where he ended up seeing Christian Ingram. Now, Ingram's just a 3-star kid, but he's really been rising up on recruiting boards. I mean, he released his top 5. Michigan was on it. He's set to make an official visit for the game against Oregon, I believe, on November 2nd. So, I think right now, Georgia being involved might scare some people, but I don't know how hard Georgia's necessarily pushing. I think Vanderbilt and Kentucky, South Carolina are some of the other schools there, but Michigan definitely in the mix for him. I mentioned Benny Patterson committed to Cincinnati, now coming in for the game against Michigan State. So, yeah, I mean, there are some others out there as well, but, I think those are the ones that have locked in visits, and I think Michigan we'll get a couple of those guys at least, whether it's that group or, maybe some other late risers pop up, but they're really working hard to find true late risers along the defensive line. Tyson Smith says, what are you going to be for Halloween? I am going to be Wybie. My wife loves Halloween, and she is throwing a Tim Burton themed party. Even though Coraline isn't really a Tim Burton film, I guess it kind of fits that mold. Anyway, she's going as Coraline, and I am going as Wybie. Let's Toast Media says go blue. Happy to have you guys. Adam Shepardson says go blue. Tyrese Siley says, EJ, how big is it? I don't know what you were referring to. I think this was around the time that we were talking about my cat climbing on these crappy blinds back here. The cat is like pretty large. She's like 14 pounds. So looks like she's doing some destruction to those blinds back there. The Lone Wolf, 1921. Who is that? George Washington? I guess George Washington's is Abby. Maybe it's not George Washington. Anyway, any players you'd like for Michigan to pursue in the transfer portal? It would be cool if Michigan win after DJ Lagway from Florida. I think we kind of have to wait and see who enters the transfer portal. Obviously, they're going to have to go after a quarterback. So it'll be really interesting to see which quarterbacks go in. One of my guys is doing really well as a true freshman. Michael Van Buren just threw for 300 yards against Georgia. Mississippi State is a dumpster fire. Maybe you can add him. Maybe you can add Lagway, though his recruitment was super NIL heavy. But with portal, I think it's still a little too early. We'll have to see which guys jump in there. KS says, do you think the new shared revenue with players will help Michigan recruit since I didn't even see that before I read the question. Since Ward has been stuck in the 70s. Let's go ahead and get off the screen, dude. Sorry for the vulgar language there. But anyway, the question was, will the revenue help Michigan since they're not really throwing out bags? I think it could help some. I mean, Michigan's already starting to put together some packages and take baby steps in the right direction when it comes to NIL and recruiting. But I think you're still going to have schools like Oregon and A&M that say, hey, you may get revenue sharing at Michigan, but if you come to Oregon or A&M, we'll give you the revenue sharing plus this amount of money. So it's always going to be more money for schools that are really heavily invested with NIL. I don't think, the revenue sharing is necessarily going to even things out. I think it's a positive for Michigan, but maybe only a slight positive because it's not going to stop Oregon or Texas A&M or Miami from adding extra money to whatever the players are getting from revenue sharing. Borge Warner says, hit the like and subscribe. Yes, definitely do that. The Lone Wolf 1921 is back, and he says, if Hugh Freeze were to get fired, is there a chance Michigan could flip Nate Marshall back? Any other Auburn commits Michigan could flip in that scenario? I don't know if Hugh Freeze will get fired. I mean, this Auburn class has been really, really good. And I don't know if Hugh Freeze even matters. Like, we all know why these recruits are picking Auburn. So I'm assuming anybody that's decommitting from Auburn for the most part is likely going to end up at another school that deals heavily with NIL if they do leave the class, if Hugh Freeze is fired. But we all know the primary reason why Auburn's building a top 5 recruiting class. Now, I will say that it looks like Donovan Starr is a very realistic Auburn flip, regardless of what happens with Hugh Freeze or how much Auburn continues to suck. I mean, I think that Starr is looking at flipping regardless, and he's taking official visits he's taking an official visit to Illinois. He's taking one to Michigan for the game against Michigan State. He's thinking of taking one to Alabama as well. So I think Starr is the most realistic Auburn flip candidate. Mitchell says, is Ivan Taylor gone? No, Ivan Taylor is, well, yeah, I mean, Alabama is obviously recruiting him hard, pushing to get a flip from him, but he is coming back to Michigan for the game against Michigan State on October 26th. Lamar Morgan was actually going to go see him in Florida this past week during the bye week, but obviously you had the hurricane, and so that kind of, altered plans a bit. But, it'll be great to get him on campus for that game against Michigan State. I mean, Ivan has always been a kid that's really valued high academics, and that's why he was committed to Notre Dame to begin with. He ended up flipping to Michigan, which is obviously much superior than Notre Dame. But Alabama, I think, has always had his attention. It might not have the academics of a Notre Dame or a Michigan, but obviously it's a blue blood program as well. It has the tradition of development, and just the kind of professional style of Alabama has always been something that's intrigued Ivan Taylor, who is the son of Ike Taylor, who played in the NFL. And, when I visited with Ivan back in the summer, he talked to me about being around training camp with the Steelers and seeing how an NFL organization operates. And I think you kind of get some of that in Alabama. So that's kind of what is intriguing to him. But right now, I think there's still optimism around Michigan that they can keep him committed. Jeff says, what is the reason for all of a sudden confidence on Babalola? Are you cool with Bryce marriage? And does it annoy you that they put in a prediction right after you? I actually didn't put in a prediction for Babalola. Steve did, but yeah, I mean, Bryce always does put in a prediction after me, and it is annoying. I'm not cool with anybody. Screw all the competitors, except for Isaiah Hole. He's cool, but Isaiah doesn't do a ton of recruiting. But yeah, no, I don't like anybody. So but in terms of what's the reason for the confidence for Babalola, yeah, I think that right now Michigan's the team to beat. I think that, like I said earlier, there's a lot of optimism around the program. There doesn't necessarily seem to be as much optimism with Auburn. It looks like their NIL run isn't, causing a lot of positive momentum for them. So right now, all signs point to Michigan as long as he sticks with his decision timeline this time around, which is, sometime in the next 10 days. But yeah, I think right now, if I had to put in a prediction for Babalola, it would be Michigan. But like I mentioned earlier, I just kind of avoid recruitments like these, which has kind of worked out for me this cycle. But yeah, no, I don't like any competitors. I don't care if you, Jeff, if you were competing with me in air hockey, I would hate you too. I would be talking trash to you. I would want to beat you really badly in air hockey. I would want to shut you out like 7-0. Like I would just absolutely hate you. I hate whoever I'm competing against. Jeff says, what area do you think Michigan should recruit harder? Down south, Midwest, DMV, Northeast, out west, Texas, or go back to old ways of finding sleepers from Hawaii, Massachusetts, Idaho, etc. I like Michigan finding those sleepers in the obscure states. And the man behind that is gone, though. Like Jay Harbaugh was the master of obscure areas. He was the guy that was on Colston, Loveland, and mining for guys in these weirdo states. So I don't know if they have that type of guy that's just going to be looking at these weird states to find guys. I would like to see, I'm pretty biased because I'm on this side right now, but I'd like to see Michigan continue to recruit the DMV harder. I think there are a lot of Michigan type of kids in the DMV, especially with the high academic private schools like Gonzaga and DeMatha and, St. John's. There's a lot of great football on this in this part of the country and in that league in particular. And, a lot of high academic private school kids, I think, gravitate towards schools like Michigan. So, it worked out well for Michigan this cycle, landing Kainoa Winston. So, yeah, I'd like to see even more activity in the DMV, maybe getting back into St. Francis, where Michigan had a lot of success, landing Blake Corum and Derek Moore. I know Biff is gone and that pipeline has kind of died down a bit, but it'd be great for Michigan to be able to restart it. I think recruiting anywhere in the South, you can spot recruit, but it's always going to be tough to establish a true pipeline. But I think the DMV and the Northeast has seen an uptick. I didn't even mention the Northeast just because Michigan has been recruiting really hard there. Thanks a lot to Grant Newsom. Newsom is from that part of the country. He attended boarding school in New Jersey. And so I think he's really helped Michigan identify guys early in the Northeast. So I think Michigan has a pretty strong presence there. Not to say they don't in the DMV, but I just think they've been investing more and more resources with Newsom as the area recruiter. And I'd like to see them continue to invest resources in the DMV and kind of up the ante there as well. And you have a really good area recruiter there, Ron Bellamy, who's aggressive. So just kind of letting him loose and allowing him to offer even more guys around the DMV. Ryan Rylant 31 says, any intel on the Portnoy $3 million comment for a quarterback? Am I crazy to think about Bryce Underwood? I think, if Michigan uses that money, it will likely be in the portal. I think Michigan needs some experience at the quarterback position. If you're going to go outside of your comfort zone and pay that amount of money, I would like to see a proven commodity. And that's no offense to Bryce. Like if Bryce came, I think he would start. But he's still a true freshman. Not to say that true freshmen can't do it. You're seeing true freshmen play. You're seeing Rayola have some success at Nebraska. You're seeing Van Buren have some success at Mississippi State. So, it obviously can be done, and Bryce is a tremendous talent, but this would be such a rare thing for Michigan to do. I think you would want the best portal quarterback option. So it's like I posed the question, who would you rather have? Would you rather have Cam Ward or would you rather have Bryce Underwood, or the equivalent of Cam Ward for next portal cycle? But Cam Ward was the kind of gem of the portal at the quarterback position. And obviously he has Miami winning games in the top 10, and he was more of a proven guy. So that's where I would like to see Michigan use it. And, with Bryce, I think it's going to be tough to win him over anyway, because you're competing against LSU, which has already thrown a lot of NIL into that recruitment. Jeff says, did you see Nick Harbor score on Damani? No, I actually missed that, but man, two fun recruitments. Tyree Smiley says, EJ, who is your favorite player this year? Who's my favorite player for Michigan? I mean, obviously Will, because that's my guy. But if I were to go like guy that I'm excited is having a really good season, Kalel Mullings, man. Kalel was one of the first recruits I ever covered on this beat. He was awesome to cover. He's a great kid. Well, he's not a kid anymore. He's an adult, but he's a great dude. His family's awesome. His father, Dale, is one of the best parents I've encountered on the beat. He's a really smart kid too. I mean, Kalel just checks all the boxes. He's one of those guys you want to root for. And I think he's been, he's obviously exceeded expectations at the running back position, and he's been awesome to watch. So shout out to Kalel, man. I'm really happy he's having a big season. Jeff says, which game are you going to this week? It's a surprise because I'm going to a really exciting game that I've been waiting for a while. And I think you guys will be excited about the coverage as well. Adam Shepardson says, EJ, do you believe a coaching staff changing up their offensive play calling to appease recruits actually helps with high school kids, or is it about wins and losses? I think even more than wins and losses, it's about NIL. But I do think what the kids see on the field is a big part as well. If you're a wide receiver watching Michigan's offense, it does allow for, it brings up question marks, and it also allows for other schools to negative recruit you, right? So like if you're Andrew Marsh, you can bet other schools are reaching out to him and negative recruiting Michigan's offense. And, if you're a big playmaking receiver like Marsh is, you could maybe be thinking, this offense looks a little sus for me as a wide receiver. So maybe I need to listen to these negative recruiters. It just brings up unnecessary question marks. So I think Michigan is trying to combat that. Obviously, the quarterback situation is what it is, but I think, they've done a nice job of really getting Marsh to connect with the quarterback commits coming in, like Carter Smith and Brady Hart, and he spent some time with them in the summer on the visits that he made for his OV, and then the barbecue at the big house. He actually had a chance to throw with Brady. I think Brady's a huge selling point. You look at Brady's numbers, and he's consistently putting up a ton of yards and is constantly considered one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So, I think Michigan has to combat certain positions, but it definitely doesn't help if you, at certain positions, if you're a wide receiver looking at this offense. But at the same time, I think you can sell the future quarterbacks coming in. I think you can sell the need for immediate playing time. And that's definitely what they're doing with Marsh and some of the late rising wide receiver targets. The Lone Wolf says, just curious, do you know why Luka Gilbert to Michigan didn't materialize? Was that a case of NIL, or did Michigan not really pursue him? Luka Gilbert's committed to Miami, and We all know why kids go to Miami, but yeah, I mean, they did recruit him. They got him on campus for a visit, but it was a little surprising he didn't end up at Ohio State. But I don't think anything really got super serious there. Justin Courtney says, go after Cam Rising. That's hilarious because I covered Cam Rising on the Texas beat. I would love to cover Cam Rising again, and I would love to see him come back for like a 10th year or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, I was a big Cam Rising fan when he was a recruit. Texas took 2 quarterbacks that cycle. And I always thought Rising was the better of the 2 quarterbacks, but things didn't work out for him at Texas. But he's had a really interesting career, and I just want to see Cam Rising have more success and play for forever. The Lone Wolf says, "How confident are you that Michigan can hold on to Brady Hart?" There's no reason for me to be pessimistic. I mean, I don't think Brady is probably very impressed with the offense, but he knows he'll have an opportunity to come in and change things. And I think Kurt Campbell has been really honest with him and what he sees for the future of the offense once Brady arrives on campus. So, I don't think Brady's an NIL guy. So I think he's, locked in with Michigan right now. Philly Dom side dude. Oh, we have a super chat. Are you still high on Carter Smith? Yeah. I mean, just because I've given Brady a ton of coverage doesn't mean that I hate Carter now. Like I'm still a big fan of Carter. I still think Carter has a lot of upside. I'm really excited to see Carter again here pretty soon because I'd like to see how many steps he's taken as a pure passer. I think all the buzz has been with Brady for obvious reasons. Like Brady's an elite level quarterback. He's a 5-star level quarterback. But, I think Carter Hill still has the ceiling to be a Taysom Hill type of guy. And I'm talking about Taysom Hill, in college, not the NFL, where, Taysom was a really dangerous dual threat college quarterback that had a lot of success. I think Carter Smith can be that type of guy. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mistake me giving all this publicity to Brady, which he deserves, as a slight on Carter. I still like Carter's upside a lot. Philly Domside dude says, don't let Scam Web detour you from being a respectful journalist. I don't know if I'm too respectful, but thank you, Philly. Mitchell says, any traction on ND commits now that Deuce Knight is gone? Not that I've heard of, not really. I would love to see Michigan flip some guys from Notre Dame, but not really. Looks like we've gone way over time. I didn't really notice it, so we're going to go with rapid fire. KS says, do you think Olesh sticks? I just put up an update on the Wolverine. He is planning to continue to take visits to other schools. I think Michigan has a fight on their hands, but I do think, the preference for Olesh is for him to stick with Michigan. He knows that the Wolverines utilize the tight end position. There's opportunity with Colston Loveland going to the NFL. He has great relationships with Sherrone Moore and Steve Casula. His mother loves Michigan. So I think Michigan can still keep him. I would still lean towards Michigan keeping him, but, Penn State, Oregon, and a couple others are some schools to watch. Enley Wu says, will Brady Hart get his 5th star soon? Will you prefer Haider or Javen Osborne? I think Brady will be contending for a 5th star. I don't know if it'll be in like the next update, but I think he's a 5-star level quarterback. Savon Haider or Javen Osborne, that's a really good debate. I wouldn't be, mad at you if you liked Haider more than Osborne, or if you liked Osborne more than Haider. I really like Haider, and I would probably be a little biased putting him ahead of Osborne just because I've seen Haider so many times, but I'd love to get a chance to evaluate Osborne in person as well. John A. Schultz says, regarding Olesh, how does Oregon's continued pursuit of other tight ends like Lincoln Cure affect his recruitment? Does UM have any backups at tight end? Saw Dakota Terrell committed to Mizzou the other week. Right now, they don't really have any other backups at tight end. They're fully focused on keeping Olesh. I do think Oregon pursuing Lincoln Cure and Vander Ploe, I think probably helps Michigan there. I still am pretty wary about Oregon. Like I still think they can become more of a contender in this recruitment. Penn State is still hanging around too. But yeah, in terms of your question, I do think it helps that the Ducks have some other high-end targets on their board. Jeff says, what coach on staff would you like replaced? And who do you think would be a realistic replacement from another school? Some of the questions tonight have been mean. Who would I like replaced? So if I had to send someone off the island, it would probably be Brian Jean Mary. His recruiting results have been not great, especially if he misses on Boateng and they end up with a class of Cameron White and Chase Taylor. No disrespect to either of those guys. Like I said, I like Taylor's upside, but more so as an edge. And Cameron White could turn into something. But yeah, I mean, pretty bad linebacker recruiting there. So and then I don't think the linebackers have necessarily performed up to par this season. So I think Brian Jean Mary would be the easy pick for me. John A. Schultz says, should Michigan fans chant Brady Hart's name to the tune of Baby Shark as a way to cheer for him when he gets to Michigan? What are these questions? I personally find the Baby Shark song annoying, so I wouldn't like that. I'm not sure if Brady would like that. Gary Williams, just with a comment, he says, I know Ohio State got beat by Oregon, but it puts a smile on my face to know Michigan is trash. Wow, look at Gary Williams coming in as a troll, getting angry here. It looks like an Ohio State fan. Jeff says, did you see, but we welcome Ohio State fans, Notre Dame fans. Everybody is welcome to join this show. We love you all. Jeff says, did you, and make sure to like the video and subscribe as well. Jeff says, did you see Notre Dame flip Clemson 2025 quarterback commit, and what did you think of it? Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that dude. I know he's a 3-star. Looks like they kind of had to hit the panic button and take more of a under-the-radar recruit. Gary Williams says he was just joking. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, and who knows? You can flame Gary Williams in the chat box. And our last question also comes from Jeff, and he says, lastly, who is someone Michigan has not offered in the 25 class you wish they went after? I'm sure if you had any good D linemen, they might listen due to need. Who have they not offered in 25? I don't know, man. I would have to look at like if you're talking about specifically like D linemen, I would have to take a quick look real quick and cheat, which I normally don't do. Everything I say is pretty much off the top of my head. Someone they haven't offered here. I like, they've offered him though. Man, some of these D linemen are just so tough because they're already committed to like really high NIL schools or high-end places. Okay, I'm just going to, because we could go forever here. One guy I'd like to see Michigan try to flip that they offered in the past is Bryce Jenkins out of Friendship in Washington, D.C. I saw Jenkins play last year. He's 6'5", 335 pounds. Michigan has not landed a Kenneth Grant type of nose in a while. Bryce Jenkins is that guy. So he would be the guy I wish Michigan would go after for a flip. John A. Schultz says, ND fans are only allowed so we can tell them they're weirdos. Yes, John, they are very much weirdos, and we appreciate all you normal people for joining tonight's show. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for free, subscribe to the Wolverine using that promo code UM1. That's $1 for 2 months using the promo code UM1. That gets you insider information on everything Michigan recruiting plus the team. So head over and subscribe. And like I said, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are away from the YouTube members and premium stuff, and we're back for free here on the YouTube channel. So again, make sure to like and subscribe and tune in next Tuesday.